What up? What up? What up? Path of Exile 2. Currently, I've been dealing with the Trial of Chaos and the modifiers that go along with it. The original suggested level for me was level 36. However, I was getting one shot by the final boss overall, not to mention just the mechanics just made it such a struggle, with the modifier stacking. So I farmed and over leveled to better ensure I could survive this. I'm playing as a Hunter Amazon. I have only two ascendancy nodes, two passive skills unlocked. I know a lot of content creators and players overall have already entered into endgame mapping, blah, blah, blah. However, there are maybe players still having difficulty passing the trial. I wanted to showcase and hopefully just provide some help for how I was able to get past the Trial of Chaos and some tips to make completing the trial a bit more convenient for players still trying to undertake this. Do note that you have unlimited tries with your first stone, so you can hopefully level up and practice as you attempt the trial and fail if you're having difficulty. I'm currently on a critical hit focus lightning build with an emphasis on increased attack speed. Just giving you a little bit of a breakdown on how I'm playing my hunter. My defense being based on evasion and not armor. My main skills are lightning spears, storm lances, barrage, and explosive spears. The general set that you start off with as you enter into the Amazon class. In terms of the modifiers now, just going into the Trial of Chaos, I can tell you some of the ones that were extremely inconvenient, such as volatile fiends. It's easy initially to dodge the projectiles created by this when you're dealing with the mobs. However, on top of the other modifiers that you get afterwards and the fact that there are so many enemies that are dying overall, I would not recommend picking this up early unless you're comfortable with this. If it's the only option that you have left, or if this is the last modifier that you have to get before going into the boss, that actually is more preferable, as there aren't any additional enemies that show up in the boss fight. Monster speed for me is okay. Monsters getting a 20% attack speed is a modifier I can live with, if I'm being honest. We can focus on kind of dodging the attacks and just overall being able to survive, but them having an increased attack speed isn't too detrimental, especially if you're killing and just doing a good amount of DPS, damage per second, fast enough. Now, Rings of Doom is manageable as well. I don't recommend getting that as your first modifier. However, there are many workarounds with the ring where you can pick it up later, the third or fourth round, hopefully. There is an area inside the ring and where you will be safe when the explosion goes off, depending on the map size, of course. You can also just stay outside of the range of the explosion blast. So you have ways to kind of get around that. It's just, when you're dealing with the boss fight and got other projectiles and other hazards coming at you, that can kind of slip past you, if I'm being honest. Please note that the boss fight may be in a smaller area, so dodging the rings in addition to the boss himself and, the mechanics can be a bit more difficult than it seems, so watch yourself. The modifier Burning Turrets fires additional projectiles randomly throughout the map, and for me, these is actually an easy mod to kind of go with. They didn't do a lot of damage for me, and I was able to dodge them enough for them to not really hinder my playthrough and progress with the trial. Entangling monsters is okay. In regard to, I guess, if you get hit, you get slowed. However, I'm playing as an Amazon, so I can keep it range and parry and apply lightning effects. So I'm okay with avoiding getting hit. However, I can't say the same for melee characters. So anybody who's a melee focused build watching this, it may be a bit too cumbersome depending on the mods that are granted on top of that you have to go against. So I'm saying that Entangling Moss is okay for a ranged character, but for melee, someone that's actually trading hits with enemies, it may not be so cool. There is a modifier that gives enemies an energy shield. That sounds okay at first, manageable, but it's not. The mobs may be easier to deal with, however, the effect also goes to the bosses. Bosses having an energy shield will be problematic as one of the bosses is Balik the Sky Seer. This is a boss that has phases where he'll fly up in the air and he won't be able to target it for attacks. Basically, he'll be able to regenerate his energy shield. This type of additional help that regenerates will make it so you're ending up fighting this boss much longer than you think it would be. It becomes a bit more a battle of attrition. I'd recommend avoiding this unless this is the only option that you feel safe with compared to the other modifiers. Stormcaller Room is also a mod I had a great time with. It's a mod that you can work around. You can see the runes displayed on the ground, and you do have ample time to avoid staying inside the room to avoid the lightning damage. So it's a great one to pick up in my opinion. Drought is finally the last great modifier. I don't recommend picking that up in the initial rounds. However, I do recommend this greatly on rounds 3 and 4. Drought pretty much makes it so the monster kills don't generate flask and charm refills, but you get a refill at the end of round 3 before you get to the boss fight. And for the boss, there are generally just less mobs, if not no mobs at all. So Drought is a great modifier for, I would recommend picking up possibly round 3, if not the final round before you go to the boss. It's pretty much does nothing as a negative influence on the match. Now, let me speak to you briefly on the bosses. In terms of the bosses, I got paired with Chitsa, the Feathered Plague, and Balek, the Sky Seer. Balek, the Sky Seer, is the boss I dread facing. He's the one who dodges with a lot of air attacks. He has phases in which he's in the air, out of reach to any of my attacks. In addition to that, he has this kind of gust attack that can kill you if you're not careful with regard to the stun lock. I guess it can put you in if you don't really keep mind of his position versus yours. And this is just his base kit. Combined with the modifiers that we've discussed, especially with the fact that they stack, he can be an immediate pain as he's just very fast and he hits very hard. Now, Chitsa, the Feathered Plague, is the other boss that I was happened to get. He summons another pet plagueling and pretty much launches a stream of blood magic that can stun lock you if you're not careful enough to avoid it, if not kill you altogether. So I was able to beat the trial fighting Chitsa, making sure to dodge all of the attack for the most part, but just maintaining constant DPS using my lightning spears, my stormlance in particular, to kind of keep pretty much DPS on them and getting quite a few critical hits here and there. Cheats is more stable than Balek, so there's more opportunity to damage him, especially when you consider he has a stun meter. He does get stunned, allowing me additional free opportunity to wail on him uninterrupted, minus his pet. So yeah, Cheetah was more manageable for me and a great challenge to overcome as an early level player. What I'd like to leave last is general advice, as I've seen Reddit posts that, hell, even me in particular had some difficulty adjusting to the Trial of Chaos and just the overall flow. I've had some easy points where I'm one-shotting a lot of builds, and then I get to this part and I had an extreme difficulty. So it made me kind of reassess everything I had in my inventory and just my overall style of play. Path of Exile 2 is a lot of players coming in from Path of Exile 1. Me being new to this made me realize a few things that's important when doing the campaign. One thing I'd say is taking my time is important. I feel like trying to rush through the campaign and getting past each quest, it sounds cool until you get to that roadblock and you think something's wrong with the game when it's really your build or just what you have in inventory stat-wise that needs adjustment. I've come up on a boss and gotten one shot on a few occasions. Basically, it made me realize how important the smaller things on my build are. Getting my resistances up. I can nowhere near max any of them out, but every percentage helps prevent more damage. Considering critical hit chance and critical hit bonus damage, I found it important to add sockets when I can. Again, a couple of points more in damage or additional defense is key when you come across these roadblock encounters. Practice for how you will min-max later by more or less doing it with what you've gathered thus far in your campaign journey. If you need more currency, just consider going back to previous areas and farming and leveling up, as you would in RPG or JRPG back in the day. So, once you get past the Trial of Chaos, the game opens up. These 2 ascendancy points, or at least the 4 in total that you get after doing the Trial of Chaos, took my damage to another level, finally giving me the power to one-shot and truly focus my build. I hope this video provides some assistance as the campaign and combat really open up once you're able to get some more points in your ascendancy class. Are there any other tips you'd recommend for players and just generally new people struggling? I mean, practical tips. Don't say play last epoch. If this video did help you out, please leave a like or comment below. I'll definitely see you on the next video as well. Cheers.